Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. We like to mix it up with every week with new people, and tonight George has the honorable ability to meet Stephen Reichel, the newest regular on the big show. There you go, George. This guy
Thumbs up,
here,
baby. Thumbs up twice.
yeah, I'm telling you, Stephen Reichel's a real deal. Bo and I know that. Candy's been on with him. George, you're the new one here. I know George comes on when we have a plethora of Detroit topics. And believe me, we are loaded tonight. And Bo, by the way, before we get into the broadcast, happy birthday, Bo, but don't expect me to sing because I don't want you to lose your hearing. I'll be getting hearing aids. The last thing I want you to do is have to get it because of the way I sing. So there you go.
Happy
So,
birthday, Bo.
Happy birthday,
Appreciate
Bo.
Appreciate it.
And the way you look, it wouldn't matter how many cakes you have. If I start eating, they'll be rolling me down a hill. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, I actually don't really like cake and cookies and stuff.
Oh,
like
wow.
that's not my thing. Yeah.
No, but the one thing that is his thing is we get to start off his birthday show with a Seahawks topic. We have a lot of other NFL stuff to get to. We're going to have a video that'll be released on YouTube about Carson Wentz. That'll be released probably later on tonight. But that said, let's get to it. Obviously, the episode is titled "The New Seattle Seahawks." Now, Candy obviously couldn't read my penmanship, so she thought a new Seattle Seahawks. That's how unbad and ungodly it is. But I was glad it made her day that she had a lot of fun reading my pathetic doctor type penmanship. So don't worry about it. So, anyways, let's talk about the Seahawks. That's okay. It's a beautiful thing that we can laugh in the neighborhood. So, all right. Gone from the Seahawks are DK Metcalf, Geno Smith. They retained Jackson Smith. And it was an NGIGBA.
Jigba.
Yeah, there you go. You can pronounce it all night. It won't break my heart to turn that one over to you. They retained running back Kenneth Walker. And gone, obviously, is Tyler Lockett. And retained Jake Bobo. No relation to Bobo Brazil, the wrestler, because I know Stephen Reichel likes to talk about combat sports. I don't know if he's old enough to remember Bobo Brazil. Jake Bobo Brazil, I may not be.
No, my first experience with wrestling was Hulk Hogan. So.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Might it be just before my era of wrestling?
Yeah, but George Eichhorn and I go back to Bobo Brazil. So Jake
Yes,
Bobo
we
Brazil.
do. Yes.
So a week later, here's what happens: the Seahawks get some new weapons from Mr. Sam Darnold, who is also new, in Cooper Kupp, who returns to his home state, and Jackson Smith stays on board. All right, NJ, go ahead. Say it again, because the last time I did it all right.
Jigba.
Thank you.
Listening to you try and say it is hilarious. So it reminds me of Office Space. Not Ian and a job. It's not that hard. It's like, and the guy's like, Naga, not going to work here anymore anyway.
Well, here's a few names I could get right. Then I'm going to tell you a little Toastmaster story now that you brought that up. Kenneth Walker III, which George and I know all too well, from Michigan State. Marcus Valdez-Scantling, which I can't pronounce. And Jake Bobo Brazil. Now, before we get to that, I'll tell you right now, and Toastmasters, they're anxious to see me go out there and speak. I said, but the only way you're going to time me is applaud me off, because when I start talking about the Super Bowl, when we get to the 7-minute mark, that's the way I'm going. I'm going to go out there and go ballistic when I get up there. They say, we're looking forward to your story. Clap me off. I'll know the time is up. With that said, folks, this is your topic. Let's size up what the Seahawks have done as they go out there and we look at things a week later after the Sam Darnold signing. Things look a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, so they look different, obviously. Whether or not it's going to be better relies a lot on whether or not they're really going to address the interior of the offensive line. Because we all know that Sam Darnold can turn right back into Carolina Sam Darnold if he doesn't have protection. The couple of games with the Vikings last year when he didn't have protection against the Rams and against the Lions, he didn't look great, right? So you're going from a team that had a top 10 offensive line to a team that has a bottom 5 offensive line. So it's a real concern on whether or not he will be an upgrade. I get why they did it. When you compare their numbers to Darnold and Geno, they're almost identical. In fact, they finished the year 1 yard different in passing yards. So, I mean, it's about as even as you could get. The only difference is he's now coming to a Seahawks team that has, a significantly worse offensive line. So he's going to have to kind of figure out how to move around in there and not be the Sam Darnold that gets through half of his progression and starts to run, he's going to have to figure out how to extend plays. Now, Seattle did bring in Josh Jones from the Ravens, probably going to be a rotational piece at guard, just because he only had 43 snaps with him last year. He hasn't played a ton, but, if he's a depth piece, I don't mind it. Tevin Jenkins was supposed to be here today or last night. Not sure exactly where that's gone. I haven't heard from it yet. It didn't sound like he was actually in town, but that's another guard from the Bears. So, they are trying to address it. But bringing Kupp home is great. He plays very similar to Tyler Lockett, and he's 4 years younger, I believe, 4 or 5. Also cheaper. That was also the deal with Sam Darnold, is he is going to be about $10 million per year cheaper to keep him there. And then you get MVS, which, he isn't the best receiver, but when you look at DK isn't a great receiver. He's fast, right? One of the comparisons I always make, because people want to compare him to Megatron, which doesn't make any sense. Outside of his size, like if you look at the stature, I get it, right? He is Megatron-esque in that way. But when you look at his route running ability, he's Des Bryant. He runs 3 routes well. It's a corner, it's a post, it's a go ball. That's it. The rest of it is kind of okay. And so you basically bring in MVS, who is similar speed, also 6'4". DK catches 50% of his targets. I'm pretty sure MVS can do that. So you still have a guy that can stretch the field. You have Kupp playing Lockett's role. You still have, JSN and Bobo, which, Bobo has shown out every time he's had opportunity. He's wide receiver 4. So it's not like he's going to have an incredible amount of touches unless Cooper gets hurt. But, some of the people were complaining. They're like, oh, well, what about their size, right? Like, are they going to be undersized? And I guess they don't know how Google works. But, MVS is 6'4". Bobo is 6'4". Cooper Kupp is 6'2". JSN is the smaller guy at 6 foot. Like, I don't know where they're getting this undersized receiving core, but when the smallest guy is 6 foot and you have 2 guys at 6'4", there's not a lot of 7-footers out there catching balls, right? So I'm not sure where they're getting undersized receiving core, but I guess they don't know how rulers work.
Now, you know what I like about you just said? You said JSN, so I don't have to pronounce this guy's name anymore.
I figured I'd give you that.
No, you had to. Please, that's good. Beautiful thing. JSN, that makes life a lot easier. I can do 3 letters in the alphabet. JSN.
That's why I went MVS also.
Thank you very much. I can do Marquez Valdez Scanlon, but JSN was a bit of a situation. As for Cooper Kupp, glad to bring him home. I'm going to keep my comments short and turn over the rest of the crew and let you go on as long as you want to.
To answer Pensman there, there's no way they're bringing Lockett back now that they signed Kupp.
Okay.
Because there's no benefit to bringing that guy. You already have 2 slot style guys in JSN, which is where he played a lot of his ball last year, and Kupp. So you have 2 guys that play very similar, elite route running, get open type positions. So there's no reason to bring a 3rd one in.
Beautiful, Bo. That makes my night, JSN. And I love how Steve Reichel, he's gotten to know George Eichhorn and I real well, and it didn't take him long to do it. And you know what, Steve? I love you, my brother. You're my new friend. And George Eichhorn and I have had an unbelievable relationship over the years. Right, George? Tell Steve what we're all about, man.
Yeah, man. We go back 45 years. We go back to the days.
Not many relationships last that long, my friend.
Pontiac Silverdome. Remember that place, the Silverdome?
Yeah.
That was Scott's second home and my 3rd home.
Well, and if you really want to know how deep the story goes, Steve, all you need to do is look at Little Caesars Arena, and I gave George a punch to the jaw that makes him look like it was the most unbelievable picture you'll ever see. We were boxing at Little Caesars Arena, and I'm telling you, that was a boxing photo for the ages. We're going to have to get that one to you, Steve, so you understand the relationship between my longtime buddy here. And you know what? You're right. How many last that long? Let's see, since you're the new guy on the block and you had to see me become late for class, then you had to see that side early. But you know what? The love I have with George and I, we go a long way. He don't come on any more shows unless I'm on with him. So he's used to taking all this enjoyment back and forth. And with that said, George, I'll turn it over to you on the Seattle topic because Steve's trying to digest everything between you and I, and it'll probably take him 4.5 lifetimes to do it. Go ahead, George.
Yeah. Well,
Love you. I love you, Steve. You're the best addition on the planet, brother.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. Boy, Bo, you did a very comprehensive report for us. Thank you so much, sir. We knew you would.
I knew he would.
I mean, this team, it's not like tweaking like we see with the Detroit Lions. This Seattle team went full bore into everything. And you addressed so many of the issues that I was going to bring up also. The big question is Sam Darnold. And you hit it on the head, Bo. I mean, unless he gets the protection, unless he gets that kind of support, he certainly has the weapons. I like this offense. I like what they're doing with the receivers. I mean, getting Krupp over there. And obviously, as Scott mentioned, our boy, even though one season only at Michigan State, it was a great season for Kenneth Walker. I'm very high on him, obviously, in the NFL. Darnold, I mean, what can you say? I mean, they were just sailing along, victory after victory in Minnesota. And then all of a sudden they ran into something called the playoffs, or shall we say the big game, and the nervousness and all other stuff that Minnesota faced. But let's get beyond Minnesota. Will he work out in Seattle? I think he will. It's not often you see quarterbacks flipping around as much as we've seen this offseason in free agency and trades. But boy, oh boy, I'm still high on him. I mean, he cashed in. Obviously, he's got a good paycheck coming. And Darnold's got some good weapons there, as you described with the passing and running as well. The question is also going to be defensively. Of course, they got to withstand all the pressure they're going to see from the teams that they're going to face again in Seattle. But I tell you what, I mean, this franchise has always been a good, solid franchise, as we know, and they've really, really put together many winning seasons. They just haven't been able to, to cross the finish line, so to speak, and win the big one, the Super Bowl. But that's another story for another time. But no, I like it. I like it.
One.
Well, they did win one, George.
You did win one.
We beat the brakes off the Broncos.
You did.
They got one more than
We're
the
just all
Minnesota
remember
Vikings.
the one you should have
got
won.
one more than
not the
Detroit.
one you
Well,
did.
so here's how I rationalize that. We are so obsessed with the number 12, we had to go 1 and 2 in Super Bowls.
Wow, that's a good one.
I'm not.
I am not top. I don't have a chance to top that one.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw games over at the Seattle Kingdom, and I can tell how loud those people were. I love seeing a game.
We used to get penalties. We used to get penalties for the noise in the Kingdom.
Did you really?
Back in the 80s, you would actually get a penalty if your crowd was too loud. There was a decibel rating. And what's that do to that crowd? Makes you louder. But it's funny because your team would actually get penalized yardage for it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I have to tell you the one thing, though, before I turn over to Steve real quick. I owe the Seahawks big time for this because when I was covering Super Bowl 39 and I couldn't get in, one of the Seahawks PR ladies says, stick nearby because nobody showed up, and she waved me over, and one of the New York writers didn't show up, and I got in the game thanks to this woman. So, guys, don't remember who the lady was. Man, she was a sweetheart. Oh, my
I remember that. Yeah.
So
yeah, the Kingdom was actually an awesome place to watch a game.
Oh, it was. That was
it was a little rough if you had a bad seat, though, because the 300 level, if you went to the high part of the arc, went to double Q. Right, which means if you're basically sitting in Spokane, like the players look this big, but you're still in the building.
Yeah, I was in the press box. That wasn't too bad. All right, we'll turn over to Steve.
I mean, what can you say about Seattle? They're going to be in a boat race for third place for at least the next 2 years. I mean, they've blown everything up, in my opinion. I mean, I think Sam Darnold is if everyone's relying on a Chicago Bears replacement offensive lineman, didn't they just blow up their whole offensive line because Caleb Williams was running for his life last season? So we're relying on that to keep Sam Darnold upright. Go ahead.
Tevin was actually their one good player. I mean, so, but again, if they were to bring him in, it'd be for a rotational piece also.
Yeah. See, so I mean, you're taking Sam Darnold from like a good offensive line to a fair to bad offensive line. I mean, I do think he will succeed there at given some time, but I think at least for this season, the Seattle fans should temper back. I think more excited with the wide receiver core than he should be. But obviously, you love your guys when you know they're there. You know what they're capable of. You know what they're asking of them. So I get that, especially when you know. But the other thing is what you know we're what who's your coach again? I forget.
What's that? Oh, we have McDonald. We have the old DC from the Ravens.
Okay.
And
so,
Michigan Wolverine. Don't forget that either.
Yeah.
I say it like this. You know, if like what Bo said, if they go and draft some linemen to kind of keep Darnold upright to kind of help protect him a little bit, I think they could potentially be get themselves ahead of a rebuild. But the Cooper Kupp signing, I think, is just another thing to kind of help Sam have some outlet pieces and things of that nature. You know, it's going to be a rough one to for them, at least for the next few years. But it's one of those things where if you draft well, if you don't overspend on a free agent here or to retain a guy there, you're put yourself in a good position to move forward. You know, I say it all the time. Look what Howie Roseman's done in the last 20 years here in Philadelphia is insanity. So, I mean, I think if you're a front office looking to kind of rebuild, like look at the model that Howie's done over that time. And you got to remember, he started his run when Joe Banner was there, and he had to deal with the TO mess and things of that nature. So he's literally went from the low of lows to start his career to obviously now. I mean, it's hard to argue he'll probably be a Hall of Famer at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you know, one thing I'd add to this, and it adds a little clarity to kind of why it is they're signing free agents the way they are, is, you know, they're attacking things that aren't great in this draft, right? Like they grabbed receivers. It's not a deep receiver draft, right? They did what they did at quarterback, weak quarterback draft. What this draft does have is a lot of offensive line and defensive line. Seattle has 5 picks in the top 100. So, and when you're looking at linemen, basically any of them from about pick 15 to about pick 45 doesn't have a huge drop off in skill set. So you can pick guys, you don't have to go reach for anybody. You can pick one of those guys. I mean, unless you're just super in love with one. But at the Senior Bowl, Schneider and McDonald were following the offensive and defensive line units around the entire week. So it makes me think they have a plan for what it is they're trying to restock this line with.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's turn over to Candy. We got a lot of ground to cover, but go ahead, Can.
So, Tavion, we were talking about, he was a second-round pick by the Chicago Bears in 2021. He was ranked 18th ranked guard last season. He finished as 20th ranked run blocker and 15th ranked pass blocker. So he also graded out as number 13 guard in 2023 and number 3 in 2022. So yeah, it seems like he's declining a little bit, but then again, you have to look at who he played for and how have they done over the last 3 years. I mean, we think about, oh yeah, did he protect this last year? But who were his coaches and how many have they changed? And we've talked about consistency at the coaching level and how that plays a role in the offense all around, whether it be no matter what your position is. They've also looked at Lucas Patrick. He visited, Seattle, and Dylan Renduze. And like you said, this draft has a lot of potential for offensive line, which is the one area that they really need now. Now, is Sam Darnold the be all and end all? No, he's not an elite quarterback. But is he a serviceable quarterback? Because look what he did in Minnesota. So with the right situation, with the right fit, with the right guys, as long as, and one of the things I've always said is there is no I in team. It's a team sport. So they all have to play together and gel together. And who knows, with all the different pieces that you've added and changed, will they gel together and be an adhesive group? Remains to be seen.
Yeah, great points, Candy. And the one thing I'll end the topic on is the fact he's reunited with Clint Kubiak. So now that you put these pieces together, it looks like a more manageable situation. Great points all the way around, Bo. We knew you were going to be the anchor on this topic because it's up there in that beautiful part of the country. I can't wait to get Candy there. It's a great place. I really enjoyed being up there, especially on Pike Street Market. Steve, now you know you have a friend out in Seattle. Seattle is a great place. All right, let's as we continue going on through the chat, what Steve is trying to say is Sam Darnold is going to be like the Jets QB dig caliber. I'm not sure where to go with that.
Yeah, he's not going to be that bad. That team was a disaster.
No, I don't think he could possibly be that bad. I mean, he can't even be as bad as the Jets version of himself. We all see this when quarterbacks, like especially some guys who were maybe drafted well and they were in bad situations, and as their career goes along, they start figuring things out. I think, especially with, things we had already touched on, the turnover coaches, things of that nature. There's just things that happens to guys' careers. Sometimes you can't put them in that category. I mean, is he an elite quarterback? As she said, absolutely not. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's not a journeyman. He is like, your 10 to 20 type of starter in this league, as far as numbering your quarterbacks go, he's somewhere in there. Like, you could throw him in that category. He's never going to be as bad as the Jets are just cursed at quarterback. I just pray, it skips over Justin Fields, because he's had enough rough goes as the beginning of his career started too.
True. No, it's funny though, because it's exactly why Miami took a flyer on Zach Wilson. Because if you look at the last couple that have been with the Jets, they get drafted by the Jets. They have a second stop. They have success at the next one, right? You have Geno coming to Seattle. He had 2 quick stops after the Jets. Ends up getting 45, or gonna get $45 million a year with the Raiders. Sam Darnold, he goes to the Panthers, has an overnight trip to San Fran, goes to Minnesota, has a lot of success. So when you're looking at Zach Wilson, you're like, okay, well, he got drafted by a dumpster fire, also known as the Jets. He goes to the Broncos, doesn't get a lot of play time, but it's his second stop. So now you're like, okay, well, when Tua gets hurt, because that's a when, not an if. Zach Wilson is almost free, and he was a high pick, a little overdrafted, but that's what the Jets do.
Excellent point. All right, let's move on. At the Super Bowl, I had an opportunity to speak to Carson Wentz, and he wanted to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to have that tape on YouTube. We don't have it available tonight. No big deal. Another reason to go out there and watch it on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, feel free to do so. But meanwhile, the Chiefs have signed Gardner Minshew, who was recently released by the Raiders in favor of Geno Smith and Bailey Zappi. So the question to everybody is this: just give me one prediction where you think Carson Wentz will land. I'm going to start with you, Steven. Where do you think Carson Wentz is going to land?
Well, obviously, I think it's going to play out to where Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson doesn't go to where he will go. But I would think, I had already mentioned this last week to Aaron Rodgers, but a place like Minnesota, a place like Pittsburgh. But you also, I don't think we're going to see where he lands until after the draft to see which one of these teams that are looking for quarterbacks at the top of the draft that don't get their guy are not comfortable with taking this player here, or have questions about this, to say, hey, let's have a stopgap guy who has a high, a higher ceiling than a lot of people think. Carson Wentz, after that knee injury, he just saw ghosts for the better part of 3 years. I don't care what anyone says. What we saw from 2017 was just a flash in the pan. After that, he was just ducking out, and he was looking for his immediate check down, and he just was not running and playing like a quarterback like he should. If I had to say anything, I would guess Pittsburgh or Minnesota would probably be my two options. I don't think he's stupid enough to go to New York. I don't think he really wants to play Philadelphia twice a year. I think that's ultimately where Russell Wilson lands, regardless if they sign a quarterback or not. That's also just my take on it from where I see from the outside looking in.
That's a fair take. Thank you very much, Stephen. Appreciate it. All right, Katie, where do you think he's going to land?
I don't know. Man, that's a tough question. I
don't always make him easy.
obviously, but I do think like the dominoes have to fall. Like, where else is Rodgers going to just end up retiring? I mean, he doesn't want to go out like that, but is he going to get the deal that he wants? Is he going to follow the Brett Favre, and go to Minnesota? Is the Steelers going to bring him in?
Just give me a guess, Candy. We're not going to solve this problem tonight, I promise.
No, I know.
I still think it's a team like San Francisco too, like have a backup for Purdy too.
Right, and I was thinking that someplace that needs
like
a
sign Mac Jones.
They did.
They signed Mac Jones, didn't they? My memory serves me.
Raiders.
Okay, so Steven, recap. Where do you think? Give me the two that you have. I'll give you two.
You want me to give two more?
No, yeah, that'd be too easy for you. All right, so you gave me two. You said what? Minnesota was the other one that you threw out, Steven?
Pittsburgh.
Okay, good enough. And Andy, who did you say?
I said the Raiders.
Okay, George, who do you think?
Well, yeah, I'm going to stick with Minnesota. I'm not so sure Rodgers is going to be going to Minnesota, so I'm going to go with Wentz in Minnesota with an outside possibility for Pittsburgh. So those are my top two.
Okay, what about you, Bo?
So I'm actually going to go a different route because the last time he played good football was with the Colts, and he was kind of terrible. No. I'm not saying he's going there. I'm saying the last time he played good football was there. He then goes to Washington, isn't very good. He has a couple of backup roles since then. I think he doesn't get a call until someone gets hurt. It could be week 3.
Okay. So you're not going to go out on a limb. You're smarter than any of us.
No, I just feel like he might be in that part of his career because he has been a little bit of a locker room concern, which is what has been some of his problem. You add injuries through the time. The last few times he's been on the field hasn't been great. It sure seems like that's we're injured. We need a guy. And so he might be to that point in his career.
All right,
so sad.
So what we're going to do is we're going to slap a TBD by Bo's answer. Fair enough?
Yeah, he's going to kick it down the road.
All right, so here, I'll give you one prediction. We'll move on. Want to make sure we get Bo out on time for his birthday. Want to get to the main topic. I'm going to throw one that nobody even thought of. I'm going to go to the Tennessee Titans as a backup.
I wouldn't be surprised either. Someone to compete with Will Levis too.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, as a backup.
I still think they wind up getting one of those top 3 quarterbacks in with their first round pick.
Well, they will. I think it's going to be Cam Ward going to Tennessee. Then you have Carson Wentz in the room. That's all. Just want to keep it simple, keep it short and sweet. Is what I'm going to do.
The veteran presence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. I'm going to go there, keep it brief because I have to be. I have to receptive to the birthday boy. I really, really do. Make sure we get him out and get as much information.
I can leave on time.
No. I'm giving you the cream of the stuff here, my brother. I love you, Bo. So I'm going to send Wentz over to Nashville. And you know what? When I have an opportunity to cover him out there, guess what? I get to see my lovely sister-in-law, Denise. Oh, love Denise. Can't wait to get her the new hat coming up as well. So there you go. All right, well, let's stay with the quarterback situation. Then we're going to go to the men. QBs in new places. Daniel Jones is going to the Colts. Cooper Rush is going to the Ravens. All right, Steven, make it real quick. Which one you like better, or do you like both?
I only like one, and it's Daniel Jones, and him in that offense, and Shane Steichen, who had already I've already let known that that's the offense that the tush push, the brotherly shove. That's where that came from. You're putting Daniel Jones in that offense. I think Anthony Richardson is trade bait come draft day. Absolutely. I think it's a fresh start for another New York quarterback. and I think it's nightmare chapter part 2 for New York Giants fans. I think he will lead the Indianapolis Colts to the playoffs. They will be at least a 9-win team. Mark it down.
Great stuff, Steven. Great stuff. So you're not gonna. So Cooper Rush, you're not that big of a deal on that. Well, don't say no more. That expression was good enough. Okay.
You really want me to talk on the Dallas quarterback, the Philly guy?
No, not really. Save it for next week. But that expression says it all.
I
And no,
feel like there's a little bias there.
Here's what's going to happen. Steven's
There
going to
is
go
some
out there.
bias. I mean, but
Steven's
Cooper
gonna-
did beat us one time, so I'll just leave it
Steven's
there.
going to send us a reel because of that expression. Never mind. I don't even know about these reels. The only reels I ever know about the ones that I grew up as a kid with those movie reels that you had to wind around and around. And George and I are old enough to know those. All right, Bo, what do you think about these two quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, Rush is a serviceable backup, so I don't mind that to the Ravens. Daniel Jones to the Colts feels more like they're not convinced that Anthony Richardson's their guy. Like, that's what that move looks like. And then when they came out and said, oh, there's going to be a quarterback competition, what that means is you're not sold on your guy, and this is about to be a disaster, and I'm here for it.
George?
Yeah, I mean, that is not a vote of confidence, is it, for Anthony Richardson, Bo? Definitely not. I still like Daniel Jones to be more successful. It depends on how much time he's going to get to play, obviously, but that's all down the road. So I'm going to go with Jones on this one,
Okay.
as the better of the two.
Candy?
Yeah, I think as the better of the two, it's Jones. I'll make it short and sweet. We got to get through these topics.
You ever heard of the word heir apparent? Okay, because that's exactly what Daniel Jones is to Anthony Richardson. As far as Cooper Rush, anytime you can take a backup quarterback that helped the Dallas Cowboys win and send them to the Ravens, I'm happy for it. Take them away. Let Stephen A. Smith chastise the Cowboys all you want. So there you go. Now you have it. Now, as we blow through the topics real quick, and then we'll have a quick station break, or who knows, we'll even have one. We'll have one at the very end because I want to get to this one here. The Madden legacy is alive and well as the Washington Commanders are hiring first 21-year-old Jesse Madden as an offensive quality control coach. Madden is the grandson of legendary Oakland Raiders head coach John Madden. Jesse Madden was a member of the Michigan National Championship team for the Wolverines in 2023 as a defensive back after initially arriving as a quarterback. Bo, what do you think about this Madden entering the coaching ranks at an even younger age than John did?
Very cool. This is my first time hearing about it, though, so I was not aware of it. But yeah, I mean, anytime you have a Madden, a Lombardi, any legacy coaching trees, it's always good to see those guys out there.
Great stuff. George?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to go with Madden being a up and coming coaching star one day. I mean, he's got that Michigan pedigree now with the Wolverines. Yeah, I mean, his grandpa was such a great character, a great figure in the NFL, obviously, from everything from not only the game, but the coaching and all that. So he's got good genes, good pedigree there. I'm going to say, hopefully he's going to be successful. I'm looking forward to seeing what he could do. And you know what? When he was with Michigan, they got so many coaches on the staff. I mean, he didn't have a chance to really stand out or prove himself very well, but now he'll have more of an opportunity. That's great.
What do you think, Steven?
I mean, listen, the lineage of Madden is legendary itself. Obviously, I got love for John being a former Eagle. Even though he wound up having success with the Raiders beat the Eagles in their first Super Bowl appearance. So didn't really have too much love for him growing up. And when you see how him and Pat Summerall were as color commentators for some of the biggest football games of my younger years. You'd have an admiration and respect for him. The way John Madden went about things, obviously, that's gonna go into his kids in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, don't have any love for the Washington Commanders. Redskins have that, so. But the fact that Dan Quinn's given him an opportunity to be an offensive quality control coach is step one. Hopefully Washington's somewhat successful this year, not too successful, obviously. But I hope the lineage of Madden continues on, and hopefully it's not too long before he gets a offensive coordinator, head coach job, and we see the legend continue.
Great stuff. Okay, go ahead, Candy.
I think the interesting thing, besides being John Madden's grandson, is he was hired as offensive quality control coach. He is a recent Michigan graduate. He was a quarterback for the Wolverines his freshman year in 2021 before switching to defensive back. So he's really recently played both sides of the ball. So I think that gives him an edge, I think, sometimes, because I think if you only are one-dimensional, that you don't see things from both sides of the ball. So I think at playing defense, you can bring something to the offensive side when you're coaching. So you've seen both. So kudos to him. Obviously he has a great lineage. And now that he has a degree, kudos for him to get hired in as a coach, because obviously that's what he wanted, because obviously he knew he couldn't play or he wasn't going to be able to compete and stuff like that. So he thought the route to go was coaching. We've seen a lot of players that try and play and either they get injured or anything like that or whatnot. He went straight to coaching. That's where his love is. That's where his forte is. Starting on a good team to, work on his way up. Who knows where he wants to end up at the end.
The only thing I'll say about it, I'm glad that he's got the job. Nowadays, head coaches are getting hired in their 30s. You want to go back as a reference, the most recent one was Kellen Moore. We promoted that one of Steve's first shows. Actually, we did Kellen Moore, wasn't it, Steve?
Yes,
so,
sir. Yes, sir.
Let's give Jesse Madden a head start. John Madden was a great head coach. Jesse's a young pup. Who knows where he'll be at 30, because they're getting younger by the second. Now we'll go to a quick station break. 3 more topics to get to. We'll see how fast I can talk, because I have an awful one that isn't about football, which is coming up after the station break. But this one falls into Steven's Bell House.
If it doesn't say Micro Machine, it's not the real thing.
There you go.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword is written by the other panelist here, George Eichhorn. Both did an awesome job writing in this book. You got to get this book, read it. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google, Apple, and Kindle. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a link to our merchandise store, as well as a plethora of great content, great writing by Scott and George, and lots of others. So go look at the website. If you want to advertise on one of our shows or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have show ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you never know what we're going to be talking about, but Thursday nights, we also do talk hockey. And Scott has the Motor City Madmouth Show, which is a one-on-one interview show. You never know who he's going to be talking to. Last night, it was a Connecticut buddy. Right, Scott?
Don Amore talked about Connecticut sports. So if you haven't watched that show, it's a good one. We talked about a lot of hoops, and even Jim Moore Jr. and the job he's done at the University of Connecticut. And I have more and more in the works. So,
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right, well, this one here is for you, Stephen, and all of us can chime in on this one. I think of everybody on this show. Tonight, this is a home feeling. It really is. Really, seriously, really. I love these topics because they're custom made to fit the people on the show. And this, of course, Steve, you got your footprint on a couple of these, but this one's really got your fingerprints on there. So, since Steve is a combat sports guy, it's worth noting, I repeat, noting that Michael and Bruce Buffer did not know that they were brothers until adulthood. How do you like that? Did you know that, Steve?
I absolutely did. I think.
I couldn't put nothing past you. Oh, I'm having a bad one. Really.
Listen, I think how that wound up playing out, like Michael's dad, they're half brothers. Obviously, that's how that whole situation happened. Seeing Michael on TV and was like, okay, I think it's time I should introduce, Bruce and Michael together. So I think they were like 29, 30 years old about the time that they figured out that, they were siblings, but also like they were both involved in kind of the same type of stuff, announcing things of that nature. So at that time, they grew a bond, and Bruce became Michael's agent and manager for a period of time before the UFC really kind of took off and started doing his thing. And that's where Bruce did his thing. The funniest thing is, as during one of George St. Pierre's title fights, when he was big during his run, he would always like be real animated with his calls. He actually blew his knee out when he was calling George's fight out. Had to sit there cage side with a blown ACL, gets back into the cage, does the winning announcement for the main event, but then had to go to the hospital. His knee was blown up because he blew his ACL out, turning and spinning and just going, Pierre, blows his knee out. Hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird of how it got to that point. They had so long between them, not knowing each other. But it's kind of cool that they found things that they were interested in, and they were completely apart for that long, where they were kind of in the same realm. So it was only a matter of time before they were going to wind up figuring each other out, winding putting everything together themselves. But it's kind of cool that Bruce was Michael's manager for a period of time before Bruce's career really took off.
Well, I like bringing this off the wall stuff on it. When I thought about this, there's no doubt that even though it's a football show, you always told me, Stephen, that you like combat sports and we could do other projects together. So I figured this was an opportunity to do it. And since Bo amused me tonight on his birthday, he didn't know anything about Jesse Madden, I throw another one. I didn't think he'd know much about the Buffer boys. What do you think about this one, Bo? Tonight is his birthday night, and he's getting an education.
Yeah, just some random stuff on here today.
I like being creative.
Oddly enough, I did actually read something about it. So, pretty cool. I did have a question for you there, Stephen, though, is, how do you feel about, BG retiring today?
Listen, that's pulling at my heartstrings right there, brother, for a couple reasons. I literally, obviously, doing the media side of things, but also like doing the fan side of stuff with my kid and stuff like that. Over the last 15 years, I literally lost count how many times I ran into Brandon Graham, both signings going to meet him. Literally, I was going to other signings one time that he was going to, and we're like going on the turnpike. He's behind us in his Escalade the whole time. My son's in the back window, like, hey, Brandon Graham. Like, literally, they did for before the Super Bowl runs, he would do free signings at Millie's Furniture almost like every weekend. So, like, I've literally lost count of how many times I ran into this man. He literally didn't get the love from when he first got here. Like, I think his first 3-4 years, everyone labeled him as a bust. Even worse so, like when he first drafted, they gave him Jeremiah Trotter's number, so he already had a target painted on his back. No one liked the pick, but it's just when you found out what type of man he was and how animated he was and just how much he fell in love with the city, he just kind of grew on you, kind of like the Jason Kelsey thing. Obviously, he didn't have the big speech at the Super Bowl parade, but he's immortalized. I still think it's funny to this day. They have a statue for Nick Foles, but not Brandon Graham, who strip sacked arguably the GOAT Tom Brady to win your first Super Bowl. I felt that would have been the statue I would have went with, but that was just me. But yeah, 15 years here. We haven't had a guy like that, like play that long in this city since Chuck Bednarik. So he was a staple here for quite some time. I don't think he's NFL Hall of Fame status, but he's Eagles Hall of Fame status. Not quite my like Mount Rushmore, so to speak, but Brandon Graham has to be in everyone's top 15 if you're a real Eagles fan. He had an impact on the field, off the field. should have been man of the year. I think it was last year. He's just a unique guy. I'm really interested to see what the next chapter holds for him. I'm pretty sure he's still going to be involved with the team, regardless if it's being some assistant coach to the D line or something like that, or even they're going to find something to get him involved. Anyone who listened to the press conference today, he still has to have a sit down dinner lunch with owner Jeffrey Lurie. They're going to find some way to get him involved. They're not going to let him go anywhere far anytime soon.
Well, and he's also only one of 4 players that won both rings in Philly. So
it's crazy how much the turnover in less than 7 years was on that team, and they win 2 Super Bowls, right? That literally it's BG, Lane Johnson, Rick Lovato, and kicker Jake Elliott are the 4 players that made it to both championships to win Super Bowls. It's crazy.
Great transition about what I'm going to do. So, George, some thoughts, and Candy about Michael Buffer and Bruce Buffer. Anything you have to add to it, Candy, really quickly?
Nope, I'm good.
I'm not in tune with those fellas, but I'll take your word for it, Steven. And I want to I'm going to challenge you, Mr. Steven. Get one quick second, Scott. Brandon Graham, University of Michigan. So your mission in the next year or two, and I'll help you with this, is we got to contact the voters to get him in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame.
He deserves it.
There you go. That's your mission. And I got a friend of mine named Jim Brandstatter, who I'm sure you've heard of. And Scott knows him real well. But we got to get Brandon Graham in that Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, which is a wonderful tradition here in Detroit. Okay, that's enough of mine.
All right, well, before we go to our last Detroit update, we need to get Bo in on this one, because it involves the Eagles. And since Steven let the cat out of the bag, we're going to give him an opportunity to smile on this one, because this is an unbelievable segue. The Philadelphia Eagles are choir boys because they're the only team with 0 suspensions in 2020, while the Detroit Lions have a whopping 60 suspensions. My goodness, really? Seriously, really? Look at Steven putting his head over his face. Can you believe it? 0 suspensions in 2020. What do you think of that, Steve?
Listen, it's something that we talk about on my podcast with Ben Troop all the time, man. Philly's got the culture. They have a way they go about things. Anytime they feel that's something that is detrimental to the team, they it's like a cancer. They immediately deal with it, cut it out, and get that situation out of there. I think it goes to even more show you, like, look what happened with C.J. Gardner-Johnson over the last 4 years. They go and make the trade to bring him in. They can't come to a number that they could agree upon. Let him go to Detroit. It doesn't work. Doesn't get everything he wants in Detroit. Winds up coming back here to Philadelphia, and then the off-season tiff. Next thing you know, he gets sent to the Texans. So I think it goes to show you, like yes, we know we are very successful with you, but if we think we can win without you, we have no problem from moving on from you. And I just think that goes back to how they go about things, the type of people they like to keep in-house, to keep in the building. It just shows you everything. Are they choir boys? Absolutely not. We're all humans. We all make mistakes. We all have momentary lapses in character and things of that nature that we regret. Some of us are lucky enough to do the stupid stuff before technology was as good as it is now. And, it's something that even Brandon Graham talked about. Like, he doesn't necessarily agree with everything, like how the new culture is, but he's going to sit down, he's going to listen, he's going to do what this is what I'm talking about. The way that front office goes about things, it's just, you have to admire it. You have to, just like the fact that what we were already talking about, like, the turnover that you have on the team, how they're able to stay successful over the better part of the last 20 years, how for the most part, there's literally only a handful of guys that's had suspensions. Lane Johnson, had tainted supplements, got screwed over multiple times with that. It's just one of these things where, like, what had happened is never anything serious. I mean, if you want to throw the Jalen Carter incident before the draft in there, could have been your only other situation you really had, but he wasn't in the league yet. And even though, like, I'm sure if you ask Jalen right now, that's probably something that still weighs heavily on his mind to this day. And so I just think it's a culture thing. It's something that you have to say, hey, not only do you have 2 Super Bowls in the last 7 years, but you guys, do it in a way where that's why I think the Eagles do get these looks to have more nationally televised games and things of that nature, because they're doing it in a way where the league is happy to bring them in for, and they also have the personalities on the team to make them interesting. So I think it's a good balance, and I think you're going to continue to see that number stay at 0 over the next 5 years.
Great stuff. Bo, I know you got to go, but first of all, answer this question and let everybody know how they get a hold of you, then we'll take it home.
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't feel too bad about your Lions having such a high number, because if you remember, during that period, they were proving a point about sports gambling, and they just targeted the Lions. I mean, they came after them. They were firing staff members. So a bunch of those suspensions weren't necessarily anything that you would see from, say, the Raiders or the Cowboys, or, where it's generally massive character flaws, probably jail involved. A lot of those ones with Detroit were actually because of how much they were targeted for sports gambling when that first came together. So I wouldn't read too much into it. The fact that the Eagles don't have any is actually a little bit of a surprise, but hey, it's good. It's good.
Hell, Brad Holmes and Campbell don't feel too bad. So, sorry, Bo. Before you go, let everybody know, please, how to get a hold of you. And once again, happy birthday from us to you. Please let everybody know how you can get a hold of us, and you'll be out at 9:15 Eastern time. And there you go. Happy birthday, Bo.
Perfect. Yeah, so you can find me here on Tuesday evenings, right here on Inside the Pigskin, on my YouTube channel, on the screen at Football Talk with Bo, or Football Talk -Bo, on all the socials, Football Talk with Bo, and Roku TV 5 days a week. Thanks for having me on, guys. I got a jam.
Thanks. Happy birthday. Enjoy your
birthday.
Happy birthday, brother. Have a good one.
Have a good one, Bo.
See you next week. All right. Now there are 4 of us. George. We're back in Detroit.
I like Stephen, that word culture you used, because my Detroit Lions have used that word too, which is really, really a juxtaposition of what Scott is asking here. Okay. It really is, because your fans are probably the toughest fans in the world, maybe next to New York. And yet your team
tough is not obnoxious. There's a difference.
Yeah, but no suspensions and the fines thing. I was shocked when Scott told me we were going to talk about this tonight. Now, Bo already stole my thunder. A lot of those had to do with that gambling stuff and the early stages of the gambling and the suspensions and fines that they had to level at the Lions and their personnel. But the other one, of course, is Jameson Williams. Right. He's gotten in his share of trouble. We know that. There have been some vulgar touchdown celebrations that I'm not particularly happy with these Detroit Lions. But I think what Dan Campbell has tried to do is just say, let the kids have some fun. Let the guys have some fun. We're not going to do anything stupid like knock a guy in the midsection or stomp on somebody like our friend Dominican Sue tried. But what I'm thinking is this is a different culture in Detroit. I'm not making fun of your culture. I'm just saying.
I know what you mean. Dan has done a lot to change the culture there.
The bad boys, the old Pistons image, the bad boys going to work. This is the culture, of course, of a Rust Belt city like Detroit. I'm not upset about it. I could do without some of those crazy dances in the end zone, but the other stuff I don't have much tolerance for. Drunk driving or DUI, whatever these guys. Some of them are getting caught doing these things. No, I don't like any of that stuff. Of course, anything that has to do with terrible things on the home front too. No. I'm not happy that Detroit's that high, number one. But I also see what you're saying too, Stephen, with Philadelphia getting through this season with a great clean slate.
Candy.
But I would argue with both of you, and I would say that you would say that you both had successful seasons. Yes, you might not have ended the way you wanted to, George, but the Lions are not how should we put this? The losers anymore, the laughing stock of the league.
They're not the doormats no more.
Exactly.
The doormats, another word, yeah.
You your Dan Campbell has really changed, like you said, the culture. He's brought a winning tradition to the Lions, and most of us now on the other side, flip side, don't want to play you guys because you guys are playing so much better. Whereas before, give us the Lions, we'll play them every day of the week, and twice on Sundays because we had a better chance of beating you guys. What this shows is that Dan Campbell is a really good coach because he can overcome all of those suspensions and all of that behavior and still win.
True.
And
Very
yet
true.
Philadelphia's been doing it, and obviously they've had great success too. So I guess what are we learning? Are we learning that maybe it takes great coaching to overcome that? And because I have to give you guys kudos. The Lions have much improved.
Well, I'll put a ribbon on this topic by saying this. The Eagles definitely get it right in the front office because they draft high character players, and if they find that there's a problem, they move them out, period. The Lions haven't had a whole lot to celebrate, so I understand that there's a little bit of give and take, so you allow a little bit of that to gambling. I get it. But, geez, when you've been down for so long, then it's okay to have a good time once in a while.
I felt that my whole life until I was 20, the Eagles were just absolutely terrible. I already said it before. This past season is the first time we had a overall franchise winning record for the first time in its existence. After first game, we haven't ever had a 500 record after game one as a franchise. So up until this past season, that's a long time to try to fight to get to 500. So, which means there was some really dark times. So you guys are in the middle of a transition right now. We already have the culture changes there. It's there. Those 60 suspensions, whatever it is, that's in the past now. That's for the different regime, different team. It's a totally different slate. So as it's been bad for you for the better part of some time, I do think at some point in time in the next 5 to 10 years, you will hold the Lombardi Trophy. I firmly believe that just because of it's not just the coaching staff, it's the people up top. A lot of times it takes but not just the GM, the having the right ownership in place that wants to put the effort in to see the team succeed, not just to turn a profit. That's the difference, and I think you've seen that immediately. Why the Washington Commanders are so successful this past season because they completely tore out the cancer that was their owner and Dan Snyder. Right, it all starts from up top, man, and if you don't have it up top, then it doesn't matter if you have the great GM, great coach, great player. You have to have all levels of it. All have to be on the same page.
Well, excellent point. And we'll just put it to you this way. When you're one of 4 teams that's never made it to a Super Bowl, what the Lions are sitting with right now is a gorilla on their back. They really are. Once you get that out of the way, it becomes a different animal. So they need to get to a Super Bowl while this window is open. We'll stay on the Lions, okay, because they've made a lot of moves. And we have Mr. Detroit on here. And anytime I bring an abundance of Detroit topics on, George Eichhorn is definitely going to be on here because he doesn't have to automatically mention it because I'm doing it for him. Right, George?
Right.
So there we go. So let's talk about them. Detroit Lions, no DJ Cook replaces Carlton Davis, who goes to New England. Detroit is looking to sign Kirby Joseph to a long-term deal, so don't get on the Lions' back about not signing outside people because they're trying to take care of their own. Lions re-signed Derek Barnes. They had Kyle Allen as a quarterback. Craig Reynolds, the running back, signs, and former Lion Jeff Okudah has resurfaced in Minneapolis. All right, before I go to George last, what are your thoughts of any of those moves, Stephen?
Who?
Yeah, right. Okay.
I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. Like I don't follow up with Detroit all that much, but I still have the way of thinking with this team. They haven't lost anything really of note outside of the the coordinator, which I still think there's something over that you can overcome. If it's done properly, I don't think you're going to see much of a fall off. I think that they're 1A as far as top teams in the NFC. I think it's the Eagles and the Lions. You can flip a coin on which day which team is better. It's that close. That they weren't healthy this past season. I think was part of their problem why they faded off at the end. We'll see what happens when they run it back this season. I think they're still not going to have too much of a fall off. I still think they're a 10-win team, if not more. We'll see how far above it that they will be, and it's you guys are in one of the tougher divisions at this point in time. I don't think there's a whole lot of room, between the Packers. I think the Bears will supplant them as the wild card this year, just from the changes they made to the offensive line alone, and then you bring in a guy like Grady Jarrett to add on to that defensive line that was pretty successful last season. I think says that they're going to protect Caleb Williams, but I think they're going to be right there. I think they're going to be the second team in your guys' division to push you. But I still think that you guys are going to be the clear division winner, whether you're a 1 seed, a 2 seed, a 3 seed, whatever it happens to be. But I don't think there's going to be much of a fall off. You do got to take care of some of the homegrown guys, but like I said, like you look at the Eagles formula, you let a guy like Josh Sweat walk, you let a guy like Milton Williams walk, you release a guy like Darius Slay because you have some of those young guys underneath you, or you can extend guys like a few years ago, both re-up AJ and give Devontae a long-term contract. If you go look at that, to go look at what's happened in Cincinnati, that $100 million more, both T. Williams and Chase Daniel or Jamar Chase got in there. So you have to keep your guys at the right time, but know when to let the right guys walk, especially if you've drafted them. If you drafted them, look what Howie Roseman did this, not this draft, next year's draft. We got like 11 picks in the first 4 rounds. It's insanity. When you have things of that nature and you know how to draft, you do it right. And I think the Lions are going to continue to stay on that trend. We'll see what the draft looks like, but I don't think you guys are going to have much of a fall off and just keep the right guys in place, but don't overspend on the guys that are looking to get paid or maybe one of these fringe guys that you could just let walk and replace them, with a 3rd round pick here or 4th round pick there.
Great stuff, Stephen. All right, George, go ahead. You're obviously there.
Well,
which one of these moves or all of them do you like the best?
Well, I think they're all have good potential. Stewart, they got Stewart in to help with linebacking, which is good. The man who was Mr. Irrelevant when he came out of Houston in the draft. DJ Reed, I like him. I think that I wish they would have been able to keep Davis, but that didn't work out. The thing that really, I think they really wanted to try to get, at least the media wanted them to get, would have been a new guy on the defensive line. Bookend away from Aiden Hutchinson, a bookend defender that could go on there and edge rush and destroy the quarterbacks of the other team. We know Aiden can do that, but he's coming off a very serious injury, but he's worked his butt off to come back, and he should hopefully be fine. It was just more tweaking, I think, for the Lions. You weren't going to see a lot of movement, but you did see some. And I think I'm sure Brad Holmes thinks, and Campbell as well. Like you mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Stephen, that said about the draft, or maybe it was Bo, but either one of you did. The linemen, the linemen coming out this year is much stronger. It's as a group, it's a strong, and that's what the Lions are going to do. They're going to draft more on the line. The offensive line is coming back, but again, a lot of injuries. We talked about that all year long. A lot of injuries, yet they still won 15 games. But the black mark, of course, was what Washington did to them on their home turf. As the number 1 seed, they went home with their tail between their legs, as the saying goes. All in all, Scott, I think they were pretty decent moves, but nothing really spectacular, but decent players.
All right, Candy, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so Reed was given a 3-year deal worth $48 million, which is 32 million guaranteed. Reed is arguably just as good as Davis, and the Lions are getting him for $6 million less total and $2.5 million less guaranteed. So is there much of a drop off? No, but it gives them more room to sign other players, to give somebody else a little bit more that they need to.
True.
So that was I think that's a great signing. I don't think there's that big of a difference in their playing as opposed to the signing. Every team goes through some kind of changes. Now the question is it big drop off or is it relatively, level? This one's relatively level, I think, but you got a little bit more money to spend elsewhere. So you can sign somebody else that's demanding a little bit more. I think you guys are going to be fine. I think it'll be interesting, the coaching carousel that has changed this year, how that's going to affect some of the teams. Because yes, Steven, Chicago is improved on paper, but they have a new coaching staff, a brand new head coach to that team. How will that affect the division? And how will the new offensive and defensive coordinators in Detroit do? Those players stayed and those coaches stayed in Detroit for how long? Because they liked the culture there. They wanted the culture there, and they wanted the right fit. So they waited until the right fit was there for them. Now that remains to be seen how that will translate into success or not success.
All right, the two moves I like, and I'll keep my comments brief. Kyle Allen as a backup quarterback, I think, is an upgrade. So they'll have a little stability behind Jared Goff and DJ Cook. Candy said it. Economically, it makes sense. Keep that extra money to bring in another reinforcement or two. But again, Steven, I'm going to talk about what you said. Why don't you invest that money into draft choices or what you ought to do that are there for staying power? And that's the one thing a lot of these people these days, when they look at teams, that if you can get it right in the draft and develop your own players, like the Eagles have proven the model is to do, you do it. So I consider, and I'm actually happy for Jeff Okudah, once a former Lion prospect. He's still in the league. Unfortunately, he was being hit with a lot of injuries. He's with Minnesota. We'll see what he does. Don't see him with Detroit again, but it's good to see him land again in the NFC North, and he's going to be with Brian Flores. So the two moves, like I said, I like DJ Cook and Kyle Allen. Great stuff with everybody. So with that said, as we get ready to wrap up the broadcast, I want to thank everybody for their participation in the chat room. So, George, I'm going to let you lead off here and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
All right. You can get a hold of me at gicorn@yahoo.com, on LinkedIn under my name, and also on X or Twitter, Sandy Sports 99. And I continue to write for the South Florida Tribune as a contributor and the Motor City Tribune as well. And we cover sports here in Detroit. I've got a book that came out a couple years ago. Thank you, Candy. There's a nice picture of it right there. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. Scott's in the book. I'm in the book. And our dear friend Ernie Harwell, of course, has a major part of that book. Also, you can reach me anytime on these wonderful programs. Good to be on with you guys again tonight, getting my football fix. Thank you for having me.
We'll see. I had to put you on with Steven.
Yeah.
Shows up every single week, man.
You're a good man, Steven.
Hey, Steven, can I give you some advice, my brother?
What's that?
You need to give George Eichhorn some tips on how to get a following, because if anybody knows it good, it's you, my brother. Tell him. I want you to brag a little bit about your Twitter stuff. How many followers you got now?
I mean, I dropped down because I had to block like 200-300 accounts over the last month. Just get the garbage people that don't really engage. They're just there number crunching. And then you have ones that you had followed that had followed and wound up unfollowing. It's like, oh, you got to get blocked. You don't even get an unfollow. You get a block just because you're shady and want to follow for an unfollow. But
Wow.
I mean, it's all about how much time you get to actually put into it. Like a lot of us, we don't really have a whole lot of time. I just got lucky when I first got on to getting into some of these follow trains and things like that nature, where you do get engaged with and interacted with other fans from other fan bases from other parts of the world, things of that nature. You just be engaging, man. Just not just with content, but with other people's content and things of that nature. You cross promote, stuff like how Scott just reached out to me and how I wound up on here. It's simple stuff like that is how you wind up growing. So it's I don't think I'm any guru or anything like that. It's just having the time, having the motivation and just having something to say that reaches people is kind of the other thing. It's
Even I bought it from the beginning. But give a number. How much? Where do you think you're at?
It's what, 45K, something like that.
45K, George. Can you count that?
Wow. I love it.
Yeah, I've lost count of how many athletes and brands follow me and stuff like it. I mean,
Oh.
I'm numb to it. It was funny the one day, like the influencer / fighter Bryce Hall had followed me. My daughter's like a huge fan of him. So the other day I'd said something to her about it. She's like, "Wait, Dad, you're telling me that he's been following you for more than a year and you didn't even notice?" I'm like, "Yeah, I had no clue that that me and him had followed each other." So she was having an utter meltdown. Was like, "Oh my God!" I'm like, "Really? It's that important?" I'm like, "All right, I guess it is." Like, it just so I'm just like it's just a number to me. Like, and when you don't really have people engaged too much, it's like it doesn't matter how many followers you have. It's all about on what you get out of it.
Right.
What you can give back, how you can share what you've already built to kind of help other people. It's not just about like if I was going to be a number cruncher, I'd have just left all those people continue to follow me. I was at like 45K almost, or 25K or whatever it was. It means those numbers mean absolutely nothing to me unless the quality of the people actually means something. So,
yeah, and you know what? That's the thing I loved about you two, Steve, is the fact that we were able to bond as well as we did. And I knew that after 2, 3, 4 times messaging, you were coming on this show. I was going to find a place for you. And that's what's so cool about having you weekend. We could go out there and laugh at each other all day long. He's telling me about reels, and I'm going to turn him into a writer. And I first got my first start with George as a writer.
Yeah, we'll do whatever we can to help one another, man. That's what it's really all about. Like, regardless if I have my own program and you have your own program, I think if you're going to be working with each other on a regular basis, if you see somebody that's falling short here, or they can do better there, like pull them off to the side. Like, hey, you're good, but like let's be great.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Well, there you go, George. Now you had an opportunity with your 4th show of the week, okay? Because you normally do 3, and I had to make sure you got on with Steven, because this guy is a stud. He is, and he's made himself on every single Tuesday night. People, get to know Steven Reichel. This guy here is doing it the right way. I had to put Eagle stuff on there because he got all that Eagle paraphernalia in the back. Look at this guy.
You're not so love to Papali, man. You have to show them Mr. Invincible. He's the original Rocky here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Look at this guy. I feel an obligation to find an Eagles topic or a Philadelphia topic because Steven is on the big show. So with that said, Steven, I'm going to transition. Let everybody know how they get a hold of you, my brother.
Basically, man, just hop on social media. If you're on Facebook and Instagram, just type in my name, Steven Rochelle. It's Sports Talk. Steve Sports Talk 1 on X. There, you can show the love to the YouTube channels and make sure you either type it in my name and showing love to my channel, or going to the Just Blaze Clothing Network channel and showing us some love there. Have fun at every Wednesday with me, JB, and former Titans tight end Ben Troop. He's always got something interesting to say. And just recently relaunched my combat sports show called The Parting Shot. We had a couple BKFC and BYB fighters on over the last few weeks. Talked to the featherweight title challenger Jessica Borga this week. She's going to be fighting in Dubai on April 5th on one of a doubleheader night that the BKFC is doing in Dubai. So it's an interesting time in combat sports. It's an interesting time in overall sports. There's just there's so much to talk about on so many different levels. There's just it's a never ending onion, man. There's just layers upon layers, no matter what we can talk about.
Hey, Steve, do me a favor, please. Okay, please. Let Ben Troopy know that I'm going to be contacting him really, really soon. I want to bring him on here from time to time to talk about it. We have other players, but I know.
Hey, man, he's a big college sports buff, man. I'm telling you, you're gonna love him. You're gonna love him. He's just full of knowledge, man.
Yeah, please let him know. I've been so wrapped up with all this basketball.
We'll be on tomorrow. So
yeah, that'll be good. I'm looking forward to getting him on and continue to grow our network. Candy, why don't you take our information, let him know. And Ben Troopy is a guy that I'm looking forward to getting to know. This platform is growing, and when I add heavy hitters like Steven on here, it just makes me salivate about what we can do and how many different people I can introduce this guy to, because he's candid and great with everybody. With you being out with Mr. You and Travis, oh, you guys make an unbelievable trio. They come on, I think, a couple times a month or whatever they do. So go ahead, Candy,
All right.
take us up.
Okay, the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It talks about Scott's 40 plus years in the business and how the media business has changed and evolved over those 40 plus years. So it's written by our host, Scott the Motor City Madmouth Morgan Roth, and the foreword was written by George Eichhorn. Great book, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find a link to our merchandise store, as well as a plethora of great content. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you never know what we're going to be talking about. But Thursday nights, we also talk hockey. And then Scott throws in an occasional Motor City Madmouth show, which is a one-on-one interview show where he interviews somebody. So tune into the YouTube channel and find out. If you want to advertise, call Scott, 954-304-4941. Excuse me. If you want to be a guest, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. One last place. You can find me Tuesday nights, 7:30 Eastern, the Chicks Podcast. 3 chicks in a podcast, or Chicks and Salsa. We grew from 3 chicks, so we kind of changed the name. You never know what we're going to be talking about. Tonight we talked about the women's bracket and March Madness, and the fact that Scott and I will be covering the Final Four of the women's in Tampa, Florida in early April. So go check us out as well. Okay, Scott, back to you.
And you know what, Steven? Now that Candy mentioned my show, the Motor City Madmouth Show, you know what I'm going to do, my friend, my brother? You're going to come on as a guest, and you know what's going to happen in that situation? I'm going to interview you, and you're going to talk about everything that you can, how you've grown your platform. How would you like that invitation?
Sure, let's do it, brother. I'm
I'm definitely going to do it. And to think I would actually put a football show on here and talk about Michael Buffer and Bruce Buffer, only because of you, I put this topic on. I really, really, really did. But I think it was great because of the fact that you already knew it anyway. But it was something I wanted to get on with a lot of other people. And I think the 2 biggest takeaways I have from the show is not only bringing the Buffer topic on, but Bo was able to learn about Jesse Madden and John Madden. And the whole thing I've always tried to tell you, and George will be the first to let people know, that if I can find interesting information that nobody has, and this is be something that hopefully, Stephen, as you become a writer and develop under my system, that if you could be different than anybody else, especially on the editorial side, you're going to go as far as you want to do. And I can guarantee, as long as you and I are working, I'm going to make sure that we credential you and do the things you have to do so you know what things you're looking for. I'm not a miracle worker, but I'm going to tell you one thing. You have to have a work ethic, you have to have the energy, and you have to have the knowledge. And those are the 3 main characteristics. But only on a football show would I mention the Buffers on this. Only, but that's because of you. So we try to be different.
I mean, at least you didn't mention Conor McGregor at the Oval Office today. We could have skipped that.
Well, no, all you did was just put them onto the hashtag, but you mentioned it. That's okay. I don't know a lot about hashtags, but you just added another one, and I didn't push this way envelope. That's it. Great show tonight. I want to thank birthday Bo Crouch. And Steven, as always, I love having you on every Tuesday night. It was good that George Eichhorn had a chance to meet you as well. Candy, what can I say about you? You're an MVP in more ways than one. Most valuable person and most valuable player. She has me. Well, I just hope to do what I can and not screw this stuff up. So, anyways, I hope I didn't do it up too bad. I know my energy is loud, but then again, who cares about the Memorex class? Does anybody even know what one is these days? I'll tell you what, we're going to do it next Tuesday night on Inside the Pitch. And the only guarantees that I believe off the top of my head, we're going to have Steve and I are going to do it, right? And we'll see who else falls into place, right, Steven?
Absolutely. Let's have some fun, brother.
Stephen and I, and whoever else falls into place. So on behalf of Candy Ebling, Bo Crouch, Stephen Reichel, George Eichhorn, our resident Detroit guy, because he got all his Detroit topics in. My name is Scott Morgan, Rough Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us. I will see you probably one or as many as 2 times tomorrow night. We'll keep you posted. Good night, everybody. And we'll be loaded next Tuesday like we are every Tuesday. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Great job.